I'm going to show you how to set up a automatic peristaltic filling machine. The first thing we're going to want to do is set the guide rails on our conveyor for the width of the bottle that you're running. And there should be just a little bit of play so that the bottle freely moves down the conveyor without getting caught on the rails. Once you have the width of your rails set, the next thing, with diving heads, an air cylinder lifts the fill bar up and down during the filling process. So with the air to the machine off, the fill nozzle bar will be in its lowest position. We want to make the nozzle tips just above the opening of the bottle in this particular instance. In some instances, you will have the nozzle tip go into the bottle. But for right now, we're going to have it just clear the bottles. If I needed to adjust the height of the head dive, there's a hand adjustment wheel here that moves the head up and down on this threaded rod. So slide bottles into the machine. And this particular machine has starwheel indexing. We'll want to have bottles all the way up into our starwheel and pushed back to back against the starwheel and all the way through our filling machine. Where you put the starwheel can be changed by loosening this bolt here and sliding the whole assembly left or right. This will change how the alignment of the bottles are underneath your fill heads and the filling machine. So with all of the bottles pushed up against the starwheel, the nozzles can now be aligned. We want to have the nozzle tip centered inside of the bottle. If it is not centered, we loosen this knob here and slide that nozzle until it's lined up over the top of our bottle. And do that with each nozzle. In this particular instance, we are running every other bottle configuration. We do this when the bottle diameters are too small to have the nozzles directly next to each other. So what we do is have the first nozzle over a bottle, have a blank spot, skip a bottle, and then a fill nozzle, blank spot, skip a bottle, fill nozzle, blank spot, skip a nozzle, and then this nozzle. This is an 8-head machine. So after the 4th head, we will have 2 blank positions, and then a fill nozzle, which would be the 5th fill nozzle, blank spot, 6th nozzle, blank spot, 7th, blank spot, 8th bottle. So when this machine cycles, the blank spots will be lined up underneath a fill nozzle the second time it cycles. The next thing we want to do is align our neck locators. The neck locators are these V-shaped metal pieces here. These will ensure that the bottle neck is aligned on the nozzle tip. So these will come out during the fill process and push the bottle back against this top guide rail here. This top guide rail should be adjusted so that when the nozzle bar comes out, the bottle gets pinched against that guide rail. With the air off, we can actually slide our locator bar out. This is where you can now start aligning each of the fingers up with the bottle located underneath each fill nozzle. If the locator fingers are not correctly aligned with the fill nozzle, each finger has a knob that you can loosen and slide it in alignment with the nozzles. Now that you have your fingers aligned, push the locator all the way out and make sure that the height of the locator is just below the threads of on the neck of your bottle. If that isn't correct, the knob on the right will adjust the neck locator assembly up or down. If the neck locator is not coming out far enough, if you're all the way out and it's still not touching the bottles, you can adjust the entire neck locator assembly in and out using this hand wheel here. So turning the hand wheel will move the entire locator assembly forward or back. Now the next thing to look at is the drip tray. The drip tray must clear the nozzles when the nozzles are in the upright position. If you pull the nozzle bar up, you want to make sure the nozzle tips are going to clear the drip tray pan. If the drip tray pan is not high enough, you will need to make an adjustment using the hand wheel on the left to adjust the drip tray up or down to clear the nozzle tips. The drip tray only comes out when the nozzle bar is in the full up position. We can now turn on the air and power to the machine. The air is located on the back side of the peristaltic filling machine. Connect your air here and turn your red knob to the clockwise, and that will lift your fill head bar up. You should see pressure displayed on your gauge. Usually anywhere from 60 to 90 psi is a good range. To turn the power on to your filling machine, turn the power knob to the right. You will see the touchscreen start powering up. This will display the main screen. Currently, our alarm screen is showing there's an alarm. If I open this up, it's going to tell me there's a e-stop control power problem. That means my e-stop is pressed and my machine is not in a ready mode. Before I do that, I want to confirm that my drip tray is going to clear my nozzle tips, and confirm my count sensor that is prior to the fill nozzles is seeing bottles. The orange light indicates it's seeing the bottle. As they pass by it, it should blink one time for every bottle. If it does not detect bottles or does not detect every bottle, you need to adjust the height of the sensor or how close it is to the bottles. When all the bottles are in place, all the way against your star wheel, this sensor should be in the on position with the orange light on. If it isn't, adjust it left or right so that it's lined up with a bottle. The next thing to check and make sure is the sensor on the star wheel. It's below the star wheel assembly. We want to make sure that the light is on this piece of equipment as well. This sensor detects the studs that are all the way around the outside of the hub. There's very little clearance in between the studs and the sensor. You want to confirm that the stud is over the top of the sensor and the light is on. The next thing we can do is reset the power on our machine. Turning the e-stop to the right will allow it to pop out. Press your green reset button and the drip tray will actuate out. This is why it's important to make sure the tray is going to clear the nozzle bar before resetting your power. Now my alarm screen is showing blank and green. The next thing we want to set is the speed of our conveyor. The conveyor speed is set here with this knob. It's a 0 to 100% range, and I usually run it around 50%. It's going to depend on how fast you want your filling machine to run and making sure your bottles stay steady on the conveyor. This machine is an 8-head machine. So we will want to count 8 bottles every time the filling machine cycles. So when the machine is told to cycle, the star wheel air cylinder will release. The conveyor will run and push bottles through the star wheel. The star wheel sensor will count each of these pins. There's 1 pin for every 2 pockets. So to index 8 bottles through, we will only count 4 of these pins. When 4 pins have been counted, the star wheel cylinder will lock the star wheel in place. This will line up 8 new bottles underneath the fill heads. And as long as 8 bottles have been counted by the sensor, the process will start. The setting that dictates this is in the Adjust Preset screen. You will see In-Feed Container Count Preset 8. That is the count sensor at the beginning of the line. I want it to be 8. So type in 8 and press enter. That's going to confirm we have 8. On the next screen, you'll see star wheel count preset of 4. That's 4 pins that it counts. 4 pins is 8 pockets. We can return to our main screen. Along the bottom, you will see 5 buttons: auxiliary output, conveyor, product supply, fill heads, and fill cycle. If we want our conveyor to be able to run while the filling machine is cycling, we need to have conveyor on. And if we want to run the bottles dry just to see if our alignments are correct, our fill heads will be off. And to run a cycle, we press fill cycle. When I press fill cycle, The star wheel will release, the conveyor will turn on, and we will count 8 bottles. As long as everything's cycled correctly, your mechanical adjustments are correct. It should have cycled 8 bottles out of the filling machine. Now we will look at the tubing for the peristaltic pumps. Each fill head has a tube connected to it. This tube runs back to a Masterflex Easy Load peristaltic pump head. These tubes pass through the pump head and into our product. You want to try to maintain the tubing length of each pump the same. So the length of each tube going through the pumps should be the same. Passing through the pump, if we open up the pump, we can see the tubing, how it passes through the rollers. The tubing should pass into the V's on this channel here and here. So we can show the tubing out of the machine. And to load the tubing, we place our tubing in to the machine over the top of the rollers. Second one. And then you want to confirm that your tubing is passing into each channel and not crossing over at all. And here as well. We turn our handle to the right, watching to make sure the tubing is not getting pinched improperly. It should stay inside the V's, and push it all the way down until it clicks. Repeat this for all of your pumps. Each pump has 2 tubes, giving you your 8 filling heads. The pumps are set by time. On the adjust fill head screen, you will see times for each fill head. It says fill head number 1, that is fill pump number 1. That equates to 2 of the filling heads, because you have 2 tubes going to each pump. The amount of time the pump runs dictates how much product comes out of the nozzles. To increase the time, you can either press the blue arrows to increase or decrease your fill times, or you can increase all or decrease all, or you can press the number and type in a new number and press enter. Return to our main. Now if we want our fill heads to run, turn our fill heads button on and then load bottles onto our conveyor. Once we have bottles loaded onto our conveyor, we can run bottles through the peristaltic pump filling machine. With the fill heads on and the conveyor on, and press fill cycle on, our machine will cycle. We will be able to prime all of the air out of the tubing by running the machine. The heads will dive and the pumps will run. Once we've confirmed all the air is out of our lines, we can shut the fill cycle off and then measure the volume of product in each one of our containers. If the volume needs to be adjusted, we go to our adjust fill head screen and modify the times depending on which fill head was filling low or high.